Joining us right now is former Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterterrorism Division, Turchie. And Terry, thanks very much for weighing in this morning. The subject is expected to survive, meaning investigators will get a chance to question him about a motive. Officials are saying, though, he's been a lone wolf. I don't know. To me, a lone wolf suggests that there's no connection to anybody else. But we know that he left a note pledging allegiance to ISIS. So how do you see this?
Well, that's a good point. I think the lone wolf term has been pretty broadly used in the last few years, and I would not necessarily look at him as a lone wolf. When I think of a lone wolf, I think of someone who really had very, very little social contact with people, somebody who was really awkward, somebody who might not have had a steady job.
Exactly.
Somebody like Theodore Kaczynski who lived in a cabin in the middle of the mountains for years and really
That's
didn't want to have anything to do with anybody.
This is a lone wolf. I keep hearing this lone wolf, and I'm thinking this is not a lone wolf. This is ISIS.
Any time now, it seems as if the person is a male, and they go out and they're either with one other person or they're alone, and they commit a terrible act like this, all of a sudden they're a lone wolf. But when you've been married, when you've had kids, when you've had a girlfriend, when you've had a job that you retired from, like the case of Stephen Paddock in Las Vegas, those are not, in my opinion, lone wolves. Those are people who existed and had relationships with people, and that's not what we're necessarily looking for. And that's what makes that case in Las Vegas and this case, even though that much more concerning, more and more some of these people aren't fitting into those patterns at all. And that's important because we miss the indicators that we keep telling people to look for.
Michael, let me ask you, because Terry, we got Michael Balboni here. Terry, we want to ask you a lot of questions on the panel. But first, tell us what investigators are looking at right now, Terry. What is the path that they're following in terms of finding more information in terms of his connections, and whether or not there was a wider plot, which Governor Cuomo said he doesn't appear to see evidence that there was a wider plot?
Well, first of all, it's so great that yesterday the New York City Police Department did the job they did, because you have this person in custody. And that didn't necessarily have to happen. He could have been somebody today that we were looking for and didn't even know who he was. So you've got a great start. And so this case will range not only all across the United States in Tampa and over in New Jersey and in New York, but it will also be international in scope. It will cover just about every base, investigative and national security-wise, intelligence. As Michael knows, all of those facets of this have to come into play. We'll have legats this morning are busy with this, legal attaches overseas with the FBI. All kinds of information came in overnight about him, because almost simultaneously yesterday, as he was being carted off to the hospital, you had leads going out to literally hundreds of places to find out everything there is to know about this person, not only over the last few days and the last few months, but over the last 10 years, and certainly since 2010 when he came over here. It's interesting that we find out he comes from Uzbekistan, and I'll be curious as to get Michael's opinion on this, but 17 years ago, I accompanied Director Freed to Uzbekistan to talk about Muslim extremism. That was a big concern of theirs then, because of their citizens becoming wrapped up in these kinds of things. So here, 17 years later now, he's coming over here as a result of our immigration policies.
Right.
So nothing really changes, and that's part of the frustration of dealing with terrorism.
So, Terry, as you know, with the Istanbul airport attack, that was also an individual from Uzbekistan. But, you know, the security community has been bracing itself for what happens after ISIS loses its physical caliphate in the Middle East, and whether or not this is, in fact, a digital caliphate that's coming here, this radicalization online. And so whether you take a look at Orlando or Chelsea bombing or the Boston Marathon or San Bernardino, what do you think is now happening in terms of radicalization within the United States?
Well, I think this shows the reach of ISIS and the kind of role model they've become for this kind of age group of people. And even the age group probably could change. But I think that we're going to see more of this. And I think as they kind of crumble and they don't have a fortress there in the middle of Iraq, they still have tremendous influence all over the world. I mean, when we first started dealing with terrorism many years ago, we might have, at any particular point in time, been concerned about one point of the world. But now we could literally have people come into the United States from anywhere, from Africa, from South America, from any direction, from Europe, And any of those people could be a potential problem because the reach of ISIS extends to that population in those continents that they've really become warriors in a sense against America. There's a certain feel of authoritarianism, of Marxism to all of this. This is a real problem strategically. And if you think back to after 9/11 and a couple years later when the 9/11 Commission issued its report, remember what they said. And I read it and I thought it was just right on. They said that the two major issues, the two major strategic threats that America will face going into the future will be Iran and all that goes with that, and Islamic fundamentalism. And that's exactly where we are. And remember, that was a very nonpartisan report and a nonpartisan group that put all that together.
Yeah. Terry, thank you so much. We appreciate you weighing in this morning. Terry Turchie, thank you very much. I want to go